also at the retreat, you observed this, that there seems to be a conflict between developers and community. Developers want tall and community wants small. And so you made an interesting suggestion. You suggested perhaps following the green belt model of subsidizing development by buying some property. Do you remember?
Yeah, I kind of remember suggesting that. I mean, the question that I posed was, you know, we keep coming back to the same problem, I would say a problem, conflict in our town of a developer proposes some sort of new development or redevelopment and the community reacts that it's too big. It's either too bulky or too tall. And I've seen lots of examples of urban development, of the kind of projects that these developers are promoting in Ann Arbor and other communities, and they're not always so bulky, they're not always so tall. It seems that other communities have been able to infill or to develop that compactness, to put things in places that are empty or slightly underutilized by having a one-story building that's maybe not functioning right for anything anymore. And they have smaller scale developments. They might be a row of townhouses that are 2 stories. And I said, why do we not have this in Ann Arbor? And what I was told was that the land values are so expensive that they can't make it work economically. And I've heard that over and over again. And so I think I proposed a situation that, I mean, I was just throwing it out off the top of my head. I don't know whether it makes any sense or not, but I said, in the Greenbelt, we purchase the development rights from farmers to keep it farmland. So maybe if we keep having the same conflict over and over and over in this town because the property is too expensive to get the kind of development that we want, then maybe that's an area where the government should step in and say, okay, we have these community values and we're not meeting them, so we need to do something about that.
Okay.
I'm not sure whether the problem is as it's been described, and I'm not sure whether that's a viable solution that the community would take hold of, but it certainly seems like we need to do something different than what we're doing right now because it's just conflict after conflict, and I don't think anybody is really happy about it.
Right. There seems to also be another way to subsidize. I mean, Main Street has lost several years ago, a pharmacy, a dress shop, you know, and then Leidy's has left Liberty. So, I mean, there would be other ways, and a bookstore left on State Street.
Right.
So there seem to be many ways to look at your idea.
It could be.
Right, and to keep some of the places that we have because it would be nice to have a pharmacy, you know, downtown. So also with the retreat, a comment was made that the DDA has 2 advantages. It has a revenue stream, and the people on the board have little impact from political wins because they're not elected. But when you look at the appointments and the reappointments and the non-appointments, do you agree that politics doesn't play a pretty strong role in the DDA?
Oh, yeah, I don't agree with that statement at all. I think there's plenty of politics at the DDA. I think the $2 million question is perfect example of how politics is played at the DDA because it continues to boggle my mind why the DDA is even talking about giving over $2 million of its own resources to the city for any purpose. I mean, I think that DDA board members should be thinking first and foremost about the DDA and not about the city and its financial struggles. And so I think it's, you know, there are politics around. I mean, there's politics over preserving your seat, there's politics over grandstanding because, you know, and I'm guilty of it because you can get your point across. There's all kinds of politics. I think the DDA does have a better ability to, or for some reason seems to be more decisive about its actions.
Yes.
And maybe that's what was alluded to in the fact that there's less politics. It's just there's a quicker action
right. I mean,
cycle.
are you aware that some feel that the DDA money really should go to the city? I mean, the city is talking about, you know, losing more firemen and policemen, and $2 million would make a big difference. So there are different perspectives on this the same issue, that everything isn't about DDA, right?
Right.
I mean, there is that other way of looking at it, saying, you know, bringing in this money, it has this money, and
Yeah, but my point all along has been that the DDA board is appointed there to be thinking about the purpose of why the DDA was established. That's about creating vibrancy in downtown and making an economic impact in the downtown. It's not about keeping the city's finances in good shape. If that's what it was, and I think it's a disservice to having, and it's somewhat disingenuous to have a DDA and say, okay, here's what you're charged with, and oh, and by the way, we'd like you to also run the parking system, and then, oh, but we want some money back because we have a bad budget cycle right now. If that's the case, and the DDA should be, then it should just be, then it should be clear that that's what the community is paying for. So if we feel like we should subsidize the police force with parking revenue, then let's just say we're doing that. But that's not what we're creating all these kinds of dialogues about what it is we're doing, and oh, it's a rent fee for running the parking structure, and I think that's really not fair to the community, and it's not fair to the police because it's not a direct stream of money to the police. It's a stream of money from parking to the general fund that the city decides for 1 year what it's doing with. So it's not going to really safeguard any police or fire service in the long term.